the end of another month, so it's time to go over every single book we read in February. We did really well. We read a lot of books. I think together we read about 20 books, so today we're just going to go through all of them and let you know which one of those are worth reading. So in February, I read Perfume and Pain by Anna Dorn. This is a literary fiction, and I don't tend to enjoy those. Sometimes I need more of a plot than just like character-driven stories, but this one was really entertaining. I really enjoyed the author's writing, and I liked all of the pop culture references. Like, there was a lot of mention of the Kardashians, and I love that. And the main character's humor and personality just kept me hooked the entire way through. And now I'm ready to read more from this author. I gave it 4 stars, so I would recommend this one. I think this was like the first Aardvark book that I finally read. Speaking of Aardvark Book Club, I read a couple of those this month as well, and I actually really enjoyed them all. So the first one is So Thirsty by Rachel Harrison. This was my first book by this author. I know she has a couple other books that I want to read, but this was so surprisingly good. This story just felt really refreshing because it is a vampire novel, but it's set in modern day times, so it's very realistic and not too over the top. It does have heavy themes of friendship and age and identity, and it was so good. I gave it a 4.5, which is like a perfect book in my opinion. I can't wait to read more by this author. I finally got around to reading Dating Dr. Dill by Nisha Sharma. I've been saying for years that I want to read this one in February. This one was really interesting because our main girlie has to get engaged in order to keep her family's home. So the plot of that was really entertaining, and I really loved our main characters together. The cultural aspects added so much heart to the story, and I really loved all of the Taylor Swift references. There were some dragging miscommunication parts, but I was still entertained and I would recommend this. I did end up giving it a 3.5 star, and I would read more from this author. I did end up finding my first 5-star read of the year, which was Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. I cannot believe it took me so long to start this book. It was fantastic all the way through. There's secret societies, there's magic, there's mysteries. It's everything. I've always been really interested in the King Arthur and Order of the Round Table and things like that, and it has heavy themes of that in this book. I loved all of the characters, and I cannot wait to see where this series goes. I know the 3rd book is about to come out, so I cannot wait to read the 2nd one next month, and then I can read the 3rd when it releases. I finally got around to reading Expiration Dates by Rebecca Serrell, and she did it again. This one was amazing. The concept was so unique. Our main character gets a note sent to her of how long her relationships will last whenever she dates new people, and for her most recent relationship she receives a note and there's no date on it. So we're just trying to figure out what that means, and it was such a fun adventure. I was hooked from the start. It was a very emotional and thought-provoking read, and there was actually a twist in here that I didn't see coming. I ended up giving it a 4 star, so I would recommend. I ended up reading Parable of the Sower by Octavia E. Butler this month. I heard it was important to read it now more than ever because there's so many parallels to what's happening in today's society. Anytime there's a dystopian book written about the future, we're hoping that it doesn't actually come true, so fingers crossed that this is not what happens because it's very crazy. It's also chilling and thought-provoking, so highly recommend if you haven't read this already. The fact that she wrote this over 20 plus years ago and it's still so similar to things that we see today is absolutely insane. I did end up giving this a 4.5. I know there is a sequel, and I don't know if I want to read the sequel, but I definitely want to read more by this author. Another one I read in February is Honey and Spice by Baloo Babalola. This was a really sweet coming-of-age romance. I loved the banter and chemistry between our main characters. Fake dating trope and the British university made for a really interesting read. I do think there was times where the pacing was dragged out a little bit, but I still found myself really liking it, and I would recommend to romance readers. I think I gave it like a 3.75. I read The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas this month, and this was so good as well. Another 4.5. I really enjoyed all of my reads this month. This was such a powerful story. This is one of the books that I wish was required reading when we were in school. I know now it's like a banned book, which really sucks, but I know some people said they did read it in school, so that would have been so cool to experience that. But the fact that there's so many things that are happening in this book that still happen today is very telling. It was a tough read, but I really enjoyed it. I do want to see the movie adaptation. I know that they have one, but I heard it's a little bit different, so I want to watch it and compare. I read Reckless by Lauren Roberts, and the ending I really did not see coming at all, which I'm happy about because honestly it was kind of dragging and I was just waiting for something crazy to happen, and she made sure to have it ready for the 3rd book. I ended up giving this one a 3.75, but I'm excited to see the 3rd book come out next month and see how everything's
is gonna wrap up.
I ended up reading another Aardvark book club book this month, and it was American Rapture by CJ Lead. Probably the most unique read that I've read this year. It's essentially an apocalyptic book, and the virus that takes over America is turning people into zombies that are driven by lust. I thought it was going to be like a haha hee hee kind of book because they're driven by lust. No, they're feral, driven with lust. It was horrific and terrifying, but it does explore so many different themes. Our main character does come from a really sheltered, strict Catholic household, so there's a lot dealing with self-discovery, there's grief, there's loss, there's friendship. It's so much happening. It's also action-packed because it's a zombie apocalypse. This was just an insane book, but I did really enjoy it. I think I gave it 4 stars. It's worth reading, but just know what you're getting yourself into. If you're looking for a book that talks about religion but also has bloody scenes, this is your girl.
I ended up reading one of the books that we found at the big thrift that we went to, and it was My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Otessa Moshfegh. What a crazy story. Our main character is trying to sleep for an entire year with the help of drugs, so it's definitely a very unique and unsettling read. I didn't expect the ending to play out the way that it did, but it really had me thinking long after I finished it. And this was just, it was a crazy read. I ended up giving it a 3.5, but I liked it and I'm ready to read more from her.
The first book I read in February, I'm going completely out of order, was Broken Beauty by Ketley Allison. I was so excited for this book, and apparently I really loved it. I gave it 4 stars, but I genuinely don't remember much of what happened. This was like a dark academia kind of gothic vibe reverse harem romance. I do remember our main character is going to this school. She's definitely an outcast. She's more into like witchcraft type of things. So she draws the eyes of like all the popular people. They don't really like her, but there's 4 different men in her life and it's so juicy, but like truly I don't remember much of the plot. I know that there's a mystery. I knew at the end of this book that there's a sequel, so I was like, oh, I have to get it to see what happens. But it's one of those things that's so entertaining. I binged through it and then it like kind of left my mind. But I'm sure once I pick up the second book, it will remind me. On the back it even says the charmer, the stalker, the tortured leader, and the unhinged psychopath. And I remember my favorite being the stalker. So if you're into that, check this one out.
I ended up reading The Fall Risk by Abby Jimenez. This was like a pre-release for people who have Amazon Prime. I think the book comes out in March, but it was like a short novella. It was so good. Every time I read one of Abby Jimenez's short novellas, I always want them to be longer. She just does such a good job at making a love story that has deeper themes in it, and I really enjoyed this one. So I gave it 4 stars. Definitely recommend. It's a short read and it's entertaining.
I did end up reading one rom-com this month, and it was The Truth According to Ember by Danica Nava. I did super enjoy this. The characters were very likable and relatable. I was looking at some of the Goodreads reviews, and a lot of people did not like our main character because she does lie on her resume to get the job. She then starts to kind of like make more lies to keep up with the lie, and I honestly thought that was relatable. Like if I was working a new job and I lied to get there, I would keep lying because they were like trying to see if she knew how to do this and that, and she was like, yeah, I got it, don't worry, and then she'd like go and Google how to do it after. I feel like anyone in that position would do that.
That's more common than it is not.
Yeah, I mean, and people are flawed, so I found that really enjoyable. Some people didn't. The love interest was also super hot. I really liked them together. I just think that this book solidified the fact that I don't like workplace romance. I don't really love that trope. I don't want to go to work with her. I always feel like I'm clocking in and I don't care to read about like the spreadsheets and the projects and everything, but that's just personal preference. The book as a whole, I did really enjoy it. I gave it 4 stars. I think they said this is the first book that has a Native American main character in the rom-com genre. I can't believe that that's the case, but I know this author has another book, so I do want to read that. Definitely worth the read though.
Next is our Literal Besties Book Club book for February, and it was The Favorites by Lane Fargo. I really enjoyed it. It seemed like a lot of people in the chats weren't here for it, but I love books that have so much drama, and that is definitely the theme in this book. It's honestly more drama than romance, I would say, and I really enjoyed the Daisy Jones and the Six kind of documentary storytelling. I thought that made it really interesting. I think the audiobook was really great too. I ended up listening to it while reading along with the story. I was so interested in seeing what was going to happen next that I too read it in a day. Not one sitting, but a day. And honestly, I'm just excited to read more books with like skating themes. I really enjoyed that. So I gave it a 4.5. I really, really liked it.
The average rating for the book club was a 4.4, which is a pretty high rating. I think I gave it a 3.5. I still enjoyed it. I was being a little harsh in the chat boxes. That was just how I was feeling while I was reading. It was infuriating, but I'm sure the author intended it to be that way. I did think it was really dramatic. I thought it was ridiculous at times, but I'm sure that's how the world of Olympic sports actually is. So the author did her job. I'm just not a huge fan of dramas, I guess. But the author did invoke all of the feelings. I did read it in one sitting, so it was entertaining enough. I thought it was a fun one, and I wouldn't have read this if it wasn't a book club pick. So I'm glad that it got me out of my comfort zone a little bit.
So now we're just gonna go over the books that we read in our 24-hour Galentine's Day video. I read Check in May by Ali Hazelwood, and we both read Binding 13 by Chloe Walsh. Loved Check in May. I ended up giving it 4 stars. This is definitely a new favorite of mine from Ali Hazelwood, and I was a little bit worried because I think this was the first YA book that I read of hers, but it was very cute. And then Binding 13, I can't believe we finally got around to reading it. I really enjoyed it. I do think it didn't need to be this long, but I did really love Shannon and Johnny together. I think it took me a while to really love them because it was like, it felt like it was dragging a little bit, but by the end of it, I'm here for it. I'm there for them, and I'm ready to read everybody else's stories as well. I'll be continuing the series. I'm ready to see what's going to happen next. I gave it a 4 stars, so.
I feel the exact same way about it. It took me a second to get used to the pacing, but once I got hooked and like really got into the characters, I'm here for it. And see, this is a book that I remember everything that happened, whereas like some of the other romance books is in one ear and out the other. The other book I read in that vlog was Blackout by all of these 6 amazing authors. This was such an amazing read. I thoroughly enjoyed every single story. I loved how they were all intertwined and it all happens on the same day. This introduced me to so many new authors, so I can't wait to read more from all of them, but I know they also work together on Whiteout, so I can't wait to read that as well. I gave it a 4.
So these are all of the books that we read in February. We had a great month, not only quality-wise, but quantity-wise. I don't think there was one book that we honestly wouldn't recommend. They were all really good.
I think this is one of my favorite reading months that we've had in a long time, and I'm glad we're finally reading some of those Aardvark books that we've been collecting. They've all been really good, so I'd say this was such a successful reading month. Let us know in the comments some of the books that you guys read, some of your favorites of February. Make sure to join our Literal Besties book club if you haven't already. We are currently voting on what book we're going to read in March, and the theme for March's book poll is Women's History Month, so all of our options are women authors and female main characters. We will leave that link in the description box along with all of our bookish accounts, so make sure to check those out. Make sure to like and subscribe here if you haven't already. Thank you guys so much for watching. We will see you guys next time. Okay. All right.
Oh, sorry.
What is that?
My mirror tries to connect to somebody's Bluetooth.
Oh, it plays music?
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I didn't know that. Ooh, so you like talk to your mirror?
I mean,
Did you watch Once Upon a Time?
No. Should I?
Yeah.
Okay. I always love show
Those are good. Oh my god, this is how big it is?
She's pretty thick.
I read that in one sitting. I didn't even realize it was that thick.
Mm-hmm.
No wonder it took all night. My Sunny Angel, it was a cherry and his little stem came off.
Oh.
So now he's just a crabapple, I guess. If you're looking for a book that talks about religion but also has bloody scenes, this is your girl.
I'm looking for that.
Yeah.
That's funny.